Hey, you guys, thanks for listening in to this episode of Tips with T. On today, I have Miss Alexis with us. Hey, Miss Alexis, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for being a guest on the show today. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a time management and productivity coach. And so what that means is that I help people learn to use their time more intentionally so that they can do more of what they want, they can do less of what they don't want to do, and that they can reduce stress overall.
Awesome. Awesome. So why do you think time management skills are important?
So I think that if we don't manage our own time, it will be managed for us by other people, right? And so we want to be able to, like, most of us have way more that we want to do, that we want to accomplish than we can ever possibly do in a lifetime, right? It's like we're ambitious people. We got a lot of stuff to do. We're all going to die one day with a big, long list of things we didn't do. And so if we don't manage how we're using our time, then we end up spending it on things that either aren't our priorities or are driven by other people, or feeling like it just gets lost or slips away from us.
Yeah, and that can happen a lot when we are not managing time well. I've learned that myself. Um, so what are some time management tips that we can use to decrease the stress and increase productivity while we're working? Because when we're not managing our time well, we do tend to get overwhelmed and stressed out. So
Right.
share with us some tips that can help.
Yeah, a couple of my favorite tips are, one of them is just never to rely on memory.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I don't know about you, but as I get older, and one, my memory starts getting worse, and two, I have more stuff to do.
Mhm.
So I find that using some kind of a task system for both your work and for your home life, because I think a lot of times, like, we're used to using some kind of task system at work, but
Mhm.
maybe not for our home lives.
Mhm.
And our brains do not care that we're in the middle of, writing this report for work, when it's also going, oh yeah, I have to pick up milk, and like my kids' pants are getting too short, and my driver's license expires in 7 years or whatever it is. And so having a place to store all of those things we have to do, think we have to do, open questions, and having a way to kind of prioritize it outside of our brain becomes really helpful in kind of offloading that kind of oppressive mental load of having to keep all of that stuff inside. So I find that both having a task system can help us get more done, but it also relieves a lot of that stress.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said a task system because I've really started investing into using Asana for work because
Mhm.
I do have a virtual assistant and it helps us to stay on task when it comes to
Great.
that aspect. And then I try to write down in a planner
Mhm.
my personal things that I need to take care of,
Yeah.
just to kind of help separate the two. So I'm glad you did mention um, that because that piece
Yeah.
is very helpful.
And you're so right about the communication piece too, with you and your virtual assistant, right? It's like, if you're both using a shared task system, now you don't have to have as many like status update meetings or check-in calls where you're like, what's going on with this and where's this? Because everything is stored there, so you can both access it whenever you need to. And so I find that it like has all these other benefits too, when we start using it with other people, right? And just using a planner or using anything for our personal life, that works too. I like to use like a task. I use a task app called Tick Tick, not TikTok. That is not for productivity, or at least not in my case, right?
Mhm.
But Tick Tick, and it's just like a free task app that syncs everywhere, and I can have on my phone, because I find that, like, sometimes I might be out on a walk or at the grocery store, and I'm thinking about something I have to do, and it's really helpful to just, I mean, my phone is always with me, so it's really helpful to be able to just store it in there and get it out of my brain.
Yeah.
But you asked for multiple tips, and so I mean, another tip that I can share that I think is really valuable is doing a little end of day planning for the next day.
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of times when we think about planning, we think about doing it at the beginning of the day, right?
Yeah.
It's like we grab our coffee, we look at our calendar, we look at our task list, we're like, what are we going to do? But I find that if we do it at the end of the day, like towards the end of the workday, it can be really more effective in a couple of ways, especially around stress. So one, we can like wrap up all of our work thoughts, put everything in a bow, make sure that like we do a brain dump, get everything out of our head so that we can be present with whatever we're doing outside of work, right? Whether that's, just hanging out with ourselves, whether that's being with our kids or our families, et cetera. And then also, then you get to start the next day with a plan already in place. So
Mhm.
you don't have to like muster up the energy at 8 a.m. to figure it out. It's a lot easier when we've kind of separated that planning from the doing. So I find that just like 5 to 10 minutes
Mhm.
of making a plan for the next day can be really, really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to start back doing more of that. Checking back in at the end of the day. Cause what I do is I tend to do it, sit down on Sundays and plan out my week.
Mhm,
However,
mhm.
it is very helpful, like you said, to do an end of day check-in to see if I got my tasks done that I needed to
Yeah.
get done throughout the day. And then to see um what else probably I can do differently to help eliminate some of that stress. If I feel like I got stressed during that particular day. So I'm glad you did give that tip.
Yeah, and you bring up a really important point that end of week planning is really helpful too, because your end of day planning can just be little pivots if
Yeah.
you've planned your week ahead, right?
Mhm.
If you kind of, by Friday, we usually know what our meetings look like for the next week. And so one tweak I might say is you might try just experiment with planning on Fridays instead of on Sundays,
Mhm.
because then you can kind of get a whole weekend where you don't have to think about any of that
Right.
stuff.
Right. And I'm gonna make myself a note. Try planning on Friday. So, Alexis, what are some other tips that we can do that can kind of help us to avoid the work anxiety, though? I know that the task management tips is good, but what are some other things that we can do to help avoid the work anxiety? Because we all have it from time to time, and it can
Yeah.
take over if we allow it to. So, what are some ways that we can help avoid it if we can avoid it to help minimize it?
Yeah, so I think that around work anxiety, a lot of the time, I'm going to come back to task systems because I think that a lot of the time the anxiety is, I know I'm missing something. I don't know what it is or when it's going to come back to bite me, but it's there and it's coming. And so I think having everything in a task system first really helps. And then I think the other reason that we have a lot of work anxiety often is because we feel like we're just not going to be able to get it all done, right? We just like it's not going to be able to happen. And so I find that having a task system is really helpful for communication with other people to set expectations correctly about what we can do and what we can't. So I find that it's much easier to say, here's what's on my plate, here's what I'm prioritizing, here's what's deprioritized. Do you agree? Like, do we agree that this is the right prioritization?
Mhm.
Then we can feel like, okay, we're all in agreement. So we agree we're not getting done 100 things today, right? And some of that goes away. I think another tip that I have for some of that work anxiety is around communicating and committing to deadlines with other people, or with just ourselves, really, right? Sometimes we're working in a vacuum. And so one thing that I find over and over is that people want to give best case scenario answers. So if somebody asks you if you can do something and you're thinking, okay, like, yeah, I think I can get that done by tomorrow evening or whatever, and you tell them that. But the reality is, like, we don't know what's going to happen between now and tomorrow. Something, like some emergency might happen that we have to deal with, or something else more important shows up, or it just takes us longer than we think we are. And so what I like to do is to just give myself a little buffer when I'm committing to anything. So if I maybe a client is coming to me and they're asking for a proposal. If I think I can get it done by Wednesday, I will say to them, I can get that to you by Friday. Does that timing work for you? And I think these keywords are does that timing work for you? These are like the magic words. Because most of the time, like 90% of the time, even if you said like, I can get it to you in 2 weeks, most of the time people are like, okay, yeah, no problem, great. And every once in a while, they say like, oh, no, we need this for a client deadline, tomorrow at 2. In which case now you actually have that information. You didn't have that information before. And so this can allow you to both, I think it keeps you really accountable, right? Because no matter what, if you give yourself buffer, you're going to get it done by the time you said. If you get it done by when you thought on Wednesday, now you look amazing, right? Like you did it 2 days early. And if you're, quote, 2 days late in your own head, you still got it done on time.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, thank you for that tip, Miss Alexa. And thank you so much for being on the show today. I highly appreciate you. I will definitely take that in consideration when I'm giving deadlines out to different clients, because they do tend to, can I just try to have it to you by this certain date? Let me work on that. Yeah. So thank you for that. I will definitely be using that. So I'm going to share your social media handles.
Great.
Tell our listeners how they can get in contact with you if they want to render your services. And what things are you offering right now during this time?
Yeah. So as it says here, once, thank you again for having me on the show. It's been a fun conversation, but people can go. One thing we didn't talk about around productivity is distractions.
Yep.
And distractions, actually, their studies show that most of us spend about a third of our workday just kind of recovering from distractions. So people can download this free distraction action plan, and that can really help you to cut back on a lot of those distractions that we find so that you can get more done in the time that you want. In terms of, what I'm offering right now, I offer corporate workshops around time management productivity. I offer group coaching. I'm currently enrolling for my group coaching program, Time Well Spent, time management for real people like us, like you and me. And then I also offer one-on-one coaching as well.
So you guys, please check out Miss Alexis. She sounds like she can be very, very helpful with the time management skills and, getting organized for your business. And if you guys want to get in contact with me, feel free to do so. My number is 910-317-0396. You can shoot me an email at contact@mjfinancial.biz. You can schedule a consultation with me on my website at www.mjfinancial.biz. You can find this episode on Anchor, you guys, and you can also find a playback for this video on the YouTube channel for M&J Financial Management as well. And so thank you once again, Miss Alexis, for being on the show today. I highly appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
And all right, you guys, we will see you on the next episode of Tips with T.